Hi everyone, welcome back to Long Game Hero Every podcast. My name is Declan and this is Silvan, and today we are joined by a very special guest. This is author and writer Scarlett Drake, and some of you may be familiar with some of her works, particularly Oleander and Limerence. Scarlett, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Scared, but happy.
To be fair, I did once say to Scarlett that she scares me because her writing last time gave me like an existential crisis. But keeping that in mind, we're going to ask Scarlett some questions about her books and how she's getting on as a writer in romance. And hopefully we'll get some information out of her about what she might be doing next as well coming up. So, Oleander, for those that aren't familiar, is a retelling of The Great Expectations, but done through a bit of a contemporary lens. So, it starts off with two characters, Cas and Jude. Jude is this kid. He's living with his sister. He's lost his parents at a young age, and he is now living with his sister and his sort of uncle-in-law, you could say. They're working for this very strange, eclectic, rich family, and this strange man who's currently also looking after his nephew, Cat. The two of them strike up a sort of friendship that's a bit more of a rivalry, but over time they grow closer. But due to things happening outside their circumstances, they're starting to drift apart, and they have this on again, off again relationship throughout their lives with lots of drama, lots of very intense emotions that will get you pulling your hair out. But you just need to read the rest of it now to see how it ends. Scott, I'm going to start first with just your general reception that you've had with your books. I find that a lot of romance writers, whenever they first start out, they kind of struggle to hit that in between, what they want to write and good critical reception. I feel like you're kind of hitting the nail on the head at the moment. So you've had a lot of really positive feedback. What's that been like after you've sort of released the books and you're getting all this back?
Very overwhelming. I'll take your word for it if you say I'm in that sweet spot. It does feel like over the last year it's felt quite intense, but obviously I've been building up a bit of a back catalogue over the last 3 years. I think Hamartia came out in 23. Was it 23? I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was 23, which I wrote during COVID. That came out and it did fairly well. Like it did probably better. I also wrote to like a duology prior to that, which didn't do as well. Not in the queer romance genre, just in contemporary romance. Hamartia came out and it got a really good reception, I think. And then Oleander came out, and I think that might have just been the sort of tipping point where like I think maybe people were expecting me to be this kind of writer, and then Oleander came out and it was completely different from this other book that I'd just written. So I guess people were kind of like, oh, who's this? Where's she come from and what has she done? So like, certainly over the last 2 years, I've now got 4 books out, well, 6 if we count the other 2. But I think having a back catalogue obviously just gives you a bit more. There's just more for people to talk about. There's more books for people to read. And I think there's something for everyone in those 4 books. Like that, like someone who might like. There's a lot of my readers who read who then were like, Oleander's not for me. So I think there's a good mix. So yeah, I would say is I wrote on Wattpad for about 12, 13 years to like to barely no one. Like I was just on there writing, kind of churning chapters out week by week by week to not really many readers and just kind of slogging away at it. So writing is this sort of success, or certainly having people come to me and tell me that they read my work, that they love my work. That's brand new. So yeah, it's a bit overwhelming, still a bit surreal. Like I still get my mum asking me like, why can't I get your book in Asda? So it's like trying to explain to like my mum how like all like the Kindle works and how like KDP works. And so as soon as my books get on an Asda shelf, I think at home it'll feel like I'm an actual. Yeah. So I still feel a bit like, yeah, like when I'm with my family, it's like, I don't think they really understand, but like, yeah, it's weird. It's weird because it doesn't feel quite real. And then I was in Toronto last year for a book convention, my first ever book convention, and Rachel Reid was there actually. Wow. And there was like this massive queue who I thought it was for Rachel, and they were like, no, that's for you. Like, it was this massive queue of people like out the door, and I was just like, so someone told me, I don't know if that's true because I was an anxious mess and I barely remember anything from that day, but someone told me and Rachel had the longest queues that day.
Wow.
So I think at that moment I was like, wait a minute here, this is actually something. So yeah, very overwhelming, doesn't feel real. I'm still convinced like my next book is going to flop and then it'll all be over. But I'm writing it at the moment, scaling books to grammars and just like, yeah, having fun.
So the pressure is on from the family to be on that As the Shelf then.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I've not made it until I'm on the Asda shelf. Tesco might do as well. I don't know. But yeah.
For anyone who's not aware, Asda like our supermarkets in the UK, like it's kind of, yeah. If you're on the Asda shelf, you're usually one with the people. So yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you mentioned Wattpad there. Is that sort of your background in writing? Is that where?
Yeah.
Is that the? So
Yeah.
did you have any like formal writing or anything? Like, did you go to school for it or university for it?
No, not for writing. I wanted to be a nurse originally, and I did like a year of that, and then realized, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, then I kind of tried to find what I wanted. Like, never really had any sort of idea. Did social science. Like, I actually have a day job where I work in housing for a housing charity. So writing always just was like a hobby. So I did it on Wattpad for like, had this, like wrote when I was a kid, wrote with friends, like, but never like from a working class background in Glasgow or whatever, you never really think, yeah, I'm gonna be able to be a writer one day. Like it just did not feel like that was something that was even possible or like a real thing that a person could do. So it was mainly like fan fiction, and I'm thinking now because I think something like my first fan fiction that I wrote with my friend when I was 14. Now I don't want you to get too excited because I don't have this anymore and I cannot get it to you. But it was a Peter Andre fan fiction, and it had demons in it. So I know, it was like Peter Andre, Demon Hunter. It was incredible.
I feel like that would be so popular right now.
I don't think you understand that. That's like a lot.
I know. I think about it like every other day. I'm like, how would I get that back? It's just in here. So yeah, that was my first memory of actually writing something. And then didn't do it again for many, many years. And then just sat down and like, it was around about the time when 50 Shades of Grey was like super popular. And I remember reading that book and being like, I could absolutely do this. Like I could write that, like I could absolutely write something. And I think it probably happened to a lot of people around about that time, actually. And I started writing it. Didn't know anything about Wattpad, actually. Just kind of came across it by accident, I think. And then I was like, oh, this is a place that I could post my work and just see what happens. And then I kind of got stuck in a rut for about 10, 15 years over there. Because it's free, like they don't pay their creators over there. And so you were just really just writing for fun. And that's why a lot of it is mainly fan fiction. There's a lot of real talented writers over there. And Wattpad do kind of select you out and they kind of promote you and they give you these opportunities. So I had an opportunity where I worked for Amazon Prime. Like I wrote like some promo stuff for a TV series that they had. I was included in a kind of short story compilation, fan fiction compilation about Jamie Dornan. You can actually read that one. So you can actually buy it and purchase it. That is out there. Yeah, it's in there. I don't know what they were thinking actually publishing a book of fan fiction, but but I wasn't really. It always just felt like something was about to happen there, and if I just held on and I just kept writing, then I was going to get my big breakthrough Wattpad, and it never happened, and then COVID, and then I thought I'm just going to totally pivot. I pivoted what I was reading at the time. I started reading a lot of queer romance, and then got into BTS, got into K-pop, and then this idea for like Hamartia. You've not read Hamartia yet, have you? You just
not yet. It's on the list.
And then the idea of Hamartia was born, and then here we are. Yeah, I took the risk. I was like, I'm not going to get anywhere over here. This, like, I've given it 12 years. Like, I'm not getting my big break via Wattpad. I need to just make it happen on my own. And again, never thought anyone would read it because it was so different from what I was writing over on Wattpad. So I never really expected a lot of those readers to come over and buy it. And just found a total new audience. And I don't know if I have any readers that were with me over on Wattpad.
It was so interesting, and I
Was it
wanted to ask
fascinating?
what
Yes,
it
please.
was, because I didn't know about your background, and we've
Mm,
talked to lots of listeners and lots of commenters about how Wattpad and AO3 have
yeah,
really sort of
yeah.
surged, and I wanted to ask what it was like writing for yourself and publishing on Wattpad versus now writing to be published in a
Mm.
traditional sense.
I mean, I still, like I say, I'm not on the shelf in Asda, so I don't feel like I'm published in the traditional sense until that happens. Until I can walk into a bookshop and see my book on the shelf. I still have this thing in my head where it's not real. Of course it's real, but I'm doing a lot of this work on my own. I don't have like a publisher behind me. It feels in many ways the same, but obviously there's a reward here, and there's a lot of, like, you feel more like there was a lot of value in that. People would be waiting for your updates every week on Wattpad, and they would be messaging you, and they would be really into your story. But it was like, that was where you kind of got your inspiration. You didn't have like bookstagrammers like talking about your books or telling people about your book. Like, it was just people stumbling across your story on Wattpad because they saw it on a chart. It was really hard to like promote yourself in any way. There was no so like, it feels the same, but there's also a lot less pressure now than I felt when I was writing on Wattpad for free, because I was like, well, I need to update a chapter every single week or people are just going to lose interest and be reading something else. But now I get the time to just sit, I get the time to just write what I want to write and put it out when I want, and I know I have these readers that will follow me into the next book. So, and obviously now I get paid, which is nice. I get paid for the hours and hours and hours of like life that I give up to write, which I love doing. Don't get me wrong, but like you got the satisfaction of like finishing a novel, and so like I've got like six novels sitting over on Wattpad that were all finished, but they just sit there and never earned a dime for them. But we did it for the love of the art. So yeah.
For the love of the fan fiction, Peter
But
Andre and Jamie
listen,
Dornan.
yeah, exactly. For the fan, there's a Tom Hardy one on there as well. There's a beauty at like fan fiction is where I cut my teeth, man. Like, fan fiction writers are some. I've read some incredible fan fiction, and like I love fan fiction. I love reading it. I loved writing it. It was so much fun. But also, Wattpad was such a good place to just learn your craft. Like, it taught me really how to pace a story. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of writers just need, like, pacing is so important, and I don't think you realise it, but when you're writing week to week to week, and so I feel like I've held on to that sort of, like, every chapter of mine sort of feels like you're coming to the end of a scene, and then it's, so I always kind of write every chapter almost like I'm a cliffhanger almost, so like, oh, we need to wait to the next week until we find out what's going to happen, and I never really lost that, but it did really help me like hone the craft over there. So the 12 years was not wasted. It was just, I learned how to write a good story, I think, over there.
I think Brandon Sanderson talks about something very similar to that as well, as in every chapter should almost be like a tiny story in itself. So you have like your beginning, middle, end, and then what's going to happen next. So it's interesting though that you don't have like formal writing, like training or education, anything like that there.
Well, and I think it just goes to show the amount of work that it does take, because a lot of people will assume you write your first novel, you publish, and you're an overnight success. And I think what you've been able to demonstrate, it's taken 10 years or more than 10 years to be this overnight success. So there's a lot of graft that happens before what people see, in a way.
Yeah. And like building that, like, I wouldn't have been able to just publish a book. I wouldn't have had the confidence or the self-belief that I could have just went out and done it. Like, and also it was a different time then, because I'm older than I look. So like, I don't remember like Amazon, like self-publishing being like a massive thing. Like, it seemed to like really take off in the last like 10 years or whatever. So when I was writing over in Wattpad, that seemed to be like, it was AO3 or you were getting a traditional publishing deal. There was no kind of, or certainly not to my knowledge, there was no in between where you could go self-publish your own book. And that, I think that's changed a lot of people's lives, because I've never been offered a traditional publishing deal, and I don't see it ever happening. So I wouldn't, if those were the only two options, and that middle ground of, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with Amazon, a lot of issues with KDP, but it's sometimes it's the only way you're going to read a lot of these stories. So I'm all for it.
It's the most practical way of doing it whenever you are sort of self-published, and you can't do that sort of traditional route of the writing publishers. So no, I get what you mean. Obviously, now you have a lot of experience with writing and you've published multiple books yourself. What sort of part of the writing process do you find that you would struggle with the most?
Discipline, really being disciplined,
Yeah.
and like moving away from still thinking about writing as something I do for fun. So like it's way down on the priority list. So if I've got a million other things to do, I'm like, well, I need to get all these things done before I can just sit down and write my silly little story. So like really making the time to be like, this is a job, this is my income, and I need to make time. Like I don't need to be feeling amazing. I don't need to have every other part of my life doesn't have to be like, sorted out before I can enjoy this time that I get to sit down and write. So I think discipline for me, and just the actual physical. Usually when I sit down, I'm flying. Like I don't really get like writer's block. I sometimes get a wee bit uninspired or I get distracted because other things are going on in my life. But I don't really sit there and I'm like, it's never usually difficult for me. It's the actual sitting down at the desk in front of the
Forcing
computer
yourself
and
to sit in front of the computer, yeah.
And it's not because I don't love it. I do love it, but I'm always like, oh, but I need to do this other house life thing. So yeah, I need to, and that's taken some time as well. I changed my kind of working hours at work. I went part-time at my real job. So I could dedicate the start of the week to writing and the end of the week. So I'm trying, I'm getting better at it, but absolutely the discipline side of it and the doing. Think about it all the time though. I'm always thinking about writing. I'm just not physically sitting there doing the writing.
And I think that's really interesting. Like you talked about how, you have another job. So you have a more sort of like 9 to 5 traditional job, and then the writing is sort of interspersed between that. And I don't think people would have known that otherwise. I think people think, oh, you've got a book out, you must be a full-time author. And actually, it sounds like for a lot of authors, that are sort of self-published, you're juggling multiple jobs just to make things happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it isn't just the writing, obviously. Like you hear that a lot. There's the marketing side of it. Like I made my first cover for Hamartia. I made that cover myself. There's a lot of like promo that goes into answering emails, messaging people on Insta. Like being on my phone and on Instagram or on TikTok is like part of my job because I'm making sure that, if someone's left me a really nice review, Declan's left me a War and Peace about how much he loved my book, and I make sure that I'm reading that, and I'm so appreciative because it sounds so corny, but no one would be reading my books if you guys weren't talking about them and posting about them. So that is part of the job. It's not just the writing part. That's my favourite part of it, is the writing part, the actual. So I have a PA now, which is so fancy. So she does a lot of the stuff, like the answering emails, and like she does all that stuff. People asking me like they've ordered a book from my shop, but it's not like she does all that stuff now. So I don't need to think about it. But yes, it's a full-time job on top of a full-time job, and then
And can I ask about that? Because it sounds like, I think for a lot of us, like we're doing something that we're really passionate about, but we do another job because it's either pays the bills or it's something that we've done before in a way. Does that thought or that worry ever go away? We're like, what if this doesn't pan out? The thing that I'm really passionate about, what if it doesn't pan out? So do I need an insurance, for example?
So I think for me, as I said, only over the last 2 years have I really seen like the money side of it hasn't like been like a big factor. Again, I was just writing because I love it. And, it's only over the last couple of years I've seen I could actually make a real living from this, and I could give up my other job and I could actually dedicate a full-time, I could be a full-time writer. But yeah, there's definitely that bit at the back of my head where I was like, but things change. So like it's too unsettled. There was all that chat maybe last year about they were going to start banning book. Like there was talk about like in the States, I think we don't know, if people are even going to be able to read like queer romance in the States in the next 3 years. Like there was just a lot of scare stories at the time. And I was like, right, well, I don't know if I could rely on this for the rest of my life until I retire to be like my pension. So, and it's also a company that I've worked for a very long time. So I have extremely I've got great conditions there, and I would be really silly to give it up, and I enjoy it. I'm living the best of both at the moment, where I keep my other job and I do this as my passion project and another. So it's kind of like a second job. But yeah, it's only in the last 2 years I've really thought that it would of it as a job and not just a hobby.
Yeah. I see that.
And I still have trouble like I said earlier, I still have trouble thinking about it as a job. But when you start kind of obviously looking at the income and things like that, it becomes more serious, and you're like, actually, wait a minute.
Yeah, you need to decide then how you're going to start assigning your energy to and what projects you actually going to really dedicate to. I can see that, yeah. In terms of like, obviously, the books that you brought out now, the romance ones, there's no like particular theme to them. I know like some writers say like Rachel Reed, like she loves to write hockey romances.
Yeah.
Where yours are a bit more
all over the place.
A bit more random,
chaos.
yeah. Is there
it's chaos.
Like, how do you decide on your ideas? Like what makes like an idea stick in your head where you go, I'm gonna do that one?
So it's a good question. I think Rachel is obviously really passionate about hockey. Like, she's a massive hockey fan. I don't know what team it is she supports, but I know she's super, super passionate about it. So she's writing about in a genre and a thing that she's super passionate about. I wrote a K-pop book because I was super passionate about K-pop. You'd asked me when we just came on the call about ballet. I think it's kind of linked to like where do you get your inspiration from? So like it could be like a film that I've seen, or a scene from a film, or like a song, or just a music video or something where there's just some little spark in there where I can kind of see that in it being an entire story or an entire novel. So yeah, I think it'll always be a bit random. I don't see me settling down and just going, yeah, I'm going to write like rock star romance for the next 10. I think I'd be bored. I think it keeps it interesting for me as well. I think I'm going to write paranormal after this. I've written paranormal before. I've written fantasy as well, over in Wattpad. So there's a whole trilogy sitting over there. So yeah, it just keeps it interesting for me. You can get links to it. Actually, the fantasy trilogy is not finished. I abandoned it in book 3 like halfway through, and I still do get messages from people going, when are you going to finish this? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to finish. So yeah, I feel awful about that. But I would love to go back to that story, actually. It's got real potential. I really enjoyed writing it. It was such good fun and very different from everything else I'd written, which Oleander kind of was as well, to a certain extent.
Speaking of which, I think that's a good segue into discussing Oleander.
About the book that broke your heart.
No, the book that ruined me for days. Let's see. First of all, what made you want to adapt the sort of Great Expectations into like an romance book? I mean, it's kind of genius, but like, where did that come from?
I'm going to really disappoint you here, because it's not an adaptation of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. It's an adaptation of the Gwyneth Paltrow, Ethan Hawke movie from the 1990s. Have you seen it?
Okay.
I saw that in my formative years. Like, it was very coming of age, like, moment for me. I remember the trailer. I watched the trailer so many times, and it had this amazing like soundtrack. And yeah, I loved that movie so much, and it just never left me for years and years. And I always wanted to try and do like, well, that is a modern take on it. So I always had this idea, like, oh, that could be that. There was bits that I didn't like about it, but I loved the film generally. But I was like, oh, but if this had happened, so I fantasized and like fixated on that movie. And then after I wrote Hamartia, the idea had come back to me, and I thought, oh, remember that idea you had years ago? You remember 1990s Great Expectations movie with Ethan Hawke and Gwyneth Paltrow? What if you made that? What if you did a queer retelling of that? And then, honestly, I could just see it like unravel in my head. I could see the house. I could see Gideon. I could just see, and I was like, Gideon, oh my God. I could just see it all, and it all made so much sense. And I was like, I'm going to give this a go. I didn't know if it would work. And again, it was so different from Hamartia, and I thought people are going to be expecting me now to be this writer and do this kind of book, and you're really going to write a retelling of like when so many people now are like talking about you and think. So it was a risk, but I could not stop thinking about it, and so yeah, that's how it came about. It was like a teenage fixation, and then it just came back to me, and I thought, let's do this. Let's try this. So yeah,
I love that, because Great Expectations is such a literary staple. Like, we all read it at school.
Yeah.
And then I agree that movie with Gwyneth Paltrow was just so good.
Yeah, so dramatic, so 90s. It was just, it's so camp now. When you like, like you need to go back and watch the trailer now, because you can't even get it in like HD. Like it's just really bloody and like 90s-esque and just everything about it. And the song is still amazing. But yeah, so that's really what it's based on. So I'm sorry to disappoint all the lit heads out there that are like, no,
An adaptation of an adaptation.
Not the woman I thought she was. Yeah, exactly. But I
Everyone's
did
there
refer
reading
back.
Charles Dickens.
Yeah, no. Should I go back and read the book? Should I? Because I got so many people being like, "Should I read the?" That's exactly what I was like. Should I read the book? And I'm like, well, no. You could just watch this movie. It'll be a lot. But I did refer back more to, because I read it years ago, like you say. I read it when I was still at school. But when I was writing Oleander, I did refer back to like certain plot points and certain like themes, and like I looked at a lot of the study guides and just lines from it. So I didn't watch the movie because I thought I remembered it. I remembered every scene anyway, so I didn't have to. But yeah, I referred more to the book when I was writing it. But yeah, that was really the inspiration was the movie.
And that's what you can really see. Whilst it's not a direct adaptation from Charles Dickens' book, you can see the themes that are so present in your writing. And I think that's what people will really take away from that, especially after now we're giving everyone homework to watch the movie. So that's great. And those themes
Declan,
really translate across.
You're being very quiet. You're too young, aren't you? Is that what it is? You haven't seen it, have you? You don't know what we're talking about.
I've not seen it. No, I've not seen it.
Okay.
I mean, I did have two sisters growing up. I probably did watch it by proxy, by accident at one point, but no, I've never watched it myself.
There you
but
go.
now I have
You're gonna
homework to
hate
do,
it.
so there you go. Also, I did notice as I was reading Oleander, you make a lot of like references to like gothic sort of themes, and you get that sort of vibe, especially when you're talking about the mansion and the way in which they live, and a lot of the prose as well. You get that sort of vibe that you would when you're reading a book like that. Are you like, was like the gothic song that inspired you at all whenever you were writing this, or is it just song that just sort of came out of nowhere?
I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere. I don't tend to like go towards like, I'm not obsessed or like love gothic literature per se. Even though I'm writing a Dracula retelling next, but no, I think it felt right for this book, and the setting of the mansion, like the gothic vibes, felt really kind of apt for that. And I guess, I mean, I read a lot of Southern Gothic stuff when I was younger, like Virginia Andrews. Like, she totally broke my brain a little bit. I read her far too young. I think there's a lot of women of a certain age who read Virginia Andrews when, like, they were 13, 14, and it's maybe a little bit twisted. So there's a lot of like dark themes in that, and I definitely think I love the kind of melodrama of like the Gothic stuff. I love, sort of over the top. Like, Gideon is so over the top. Like, it just felt right. It fit. Like, I couldn't have that sitting in limerence. Like, there could not be someone sitting in limerence talking the way Gideon talked, or like, swanning about with a 3-piece suit on and stuff. So I think it fit. It also felt like I was paying homage to a little bit to the classic, because I was doing a retelling. I felt like it should try, and I don't want it to be too modern, like 10 Things I Hate About You. I wasn't trying to do like, a retelling of Shakespeare with the kids or whatever. So I wanted to keep it still had the right vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do get that idea with the book, that there is that vibe. There's like an atmosphere to it, especially the scenes when they're still on the island. Yeah, 100%. And Gideon he does have that sort of mischievous, slightly mysterious, cunning villain thing you do get out of Gothic literature that I really liked. And he was an interesting individual. So
that's one way. That's one word to describe him.
The level of manipulation within it all, and he's the pettiness as well. I found with his character, like he would always find little digs to give out to people just for the sake of it. And I want to ask you about the title, because obviously Oleander it's for anyone that doesn't know, it's like a flower, but it's also like a poisonous flower. Now, we have a book club as well. We actually read the book together, so we did. And
Mm.
a lot of people brought up the Oleander title. They wanted to know what the significance of it was. My theory was that it's how Gideon viewed Cass, but I want to know what
Mm.
was your sort of intention with the name?
I, I I'm like I don't, because I like the fact that you had your own interpretation of it.
You don't want
Because
to
the
read
title,
it?
yeah, I kind of don't want to ruin it. I feel like it can have it has so many. There's so many possibilities of what that title could mean. Like, there's obviously the
Mhm.
connection to Luke and him being, he works with plants. He reared Jude from when he was little, and then Caspian also Gideon reared Caspian, like the way, like, different. So there was the grooming aspect as well. So, and then I just think there's the kind of obvious, it's the way Cass sees himself. Like, he sees himself
Mm.
as this poisonous thing and in Jude's life. And I guess that's why I don't like, I'm not going to say why he leaves, but I think it just worked really well. But I've tried to explain. I remember when I hadn't come up with the title, I knew that I was writing the retelling, and I was like, oh, right, what am I going to call this? And it was about halfway through, not even halfway through, three or four chapters in. And I find that I need to have a title quite early on, or it just doesn't take shape in my head. The book doesn't feel real until it has a
Mhm.
title. So as soon as I decided that Luke was going to be a gardener, because I'm in the night, I don't want, again, no spoilers for the 90s version, the 1990s version, but he's a fisherman. The Luke character in that is a fisherman, and as soon as I decide, so I obviously needed to get them to Gideon and Cass, like, how are their lives gonna cross? And as soon as I decided Luke was going to be a gardener, Luke Green, bit on the nose, but as soon as I decided he was going to be a gardener, I knew that the title had to have some kind of horticultural connection. And then
Mm.
I was Googling, obviously, like poisonous plants and stuff. And I just thought that there was just something really gorgeous about the word oleander as well. And, I love a one-word title. I'm a one-word title kind of gal. It just felt so strong. And then that sort of informed a lot of the stuff around the poison, like
Mm.
so, but yes, absolutely what you said, but also totally take your own interpretation of what it means. But like I say, I was explaining the title to my partner, and he was like, so, right, okay, so why Oleander? And I was like, well, it's so obvious. Like, it's really obvious, because Cass is this, he thinks of himself as poisonous, the gardening connection, and he's just looking at me like really blankly. And I went, no one's going to get this connection, Jesus. So that I went and wrote the scene literally where Jude goes to touch the plant, because I was like, they're not going to get that. Like, I'm going to have to put an
Yeah.
actual oleander scene in here, so it clicks. Or so I don't know. I think there's probably 100 ways to take it
Yeah.
and make it, and none of them are wrong, by the way.
Because I went full English teacher on it. I had like
You've
full
probably a better
40
idea
minutes
than me.
thinking about it. It was
Oh no, and I've ruined it.
there was no, it's actually very in line with what I thought it was, mostly because the way that Gideon reacts when he enters the greenhouse after Jude may or may not have touched it. And he says, like, oh, it's something that my sister must have left behind. She had a thing for leaving dangerous things about her, something along those lines. I was like, oh,
Really, to Cass,
that
he's
sounds
talking about
direct at
Caspian.
your
Yeah,
nephew,
yeah,
yeah. Like
yeah,
this dangerous
yeah.
thing that you've left in
I
your
in your
home.
house,
So,
yeah, that you're
yeah,
gonna have to.
exactly. That you're gonna have to care
I
for,
see.
yeah.
I think that works too. I think that works wonderful. And I had a whole idea of Cass's mum and Gideon's relationship at that point as well, like what I thought that relationship was like. And then I tried to sort of weave some of that in, and then it ended up just there was so many questions. I thought I'm going to have to write a second book or something, like, to answer all these questions about Gideon and his sister, because it was given Virginia Andrews. Like, there was so much family history that you could have dug into with that family. Like, they were so messed up, like, weird rich people. My friend said when she was reading, she was Beta reading it. She's like, "Oh, weird rich people, man. They're so they're so weird." But yeah,
But we're intrigued, and I think we're intrigued by weird rich people, aren't we? Like, and I
yes,
think similarly with the title, as a new reader, like, I'm looking at the title, and it's not an obvious, like, this is what you're going to get. It invites this air of mystery and intrigue, and that's what I really liked about the title, because you could pick it up from a shelf and not know
Like,
exactly what it's going to
yeah,
be like.
what am I getting from this?
But in
But
a
also, it's just such
really,
an evocative word. Like, it's
yeah,
just such a lovely word.
Mm.
There's some words in the English language that are just, for me anyway, that just sing, and that's one of them. And it just fits so many different aspects of that book. It was perfect. It was a perfect title, if I do say so
Yeah.
myself.
I suppose generational trauma doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, or doesn't look.
No, that's the sequel. No, the prequel. That's the prequel I'm writing right now.
So we're gonna commitment to the sequel with the mother.
ask why specifically a retelling of the story?
Mm,
Was there something that inspired you behind that?
I think now that's just the writer. That's just what I'm writing these days. Like, I just enjoy the genre so much. There's so much to discover in it. There's so many stories that have been told already, but not from that perspective. And
mm,
I just knew that it could just have another. There was just going to be another layer. There could be so many different layers on top of the rich poor thing. If I was writing in the queer genre anyway, that's what I was enjoying, and that's what I was reading and writing. So it just made so much sense. And like I say, it unraveled in my head really easily. I could see Jude, I could see Cas, and yet never, apart from when I was watching at 12, writing my Peter Andre fanfic, it was all like I never imagined it any other way, like with a girl, with a girl
mm.
with an Estella. And also I liked the idea of it being different again. It wasn't just a retelling, it was also a flip of it. It wasn't just Estella and Pep again. It was, it was
Yeah.
something new and refreshing.
Well, I think it is new and refreshing, and I think it reminded me of I watched, and this is years ago, a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, and it was a movie, and there was something so you're familiar with this, and like you said, you're familiar with the themes of Great Expectations and the '90s movie, but there is a refresh, like sort of retelling of this story that brings new stuff to the story,
Yeah.
and that's I think
Yeah.
what I appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it just worked. Like, it just felt like it worked. Like, Jude's discovering himself, he's discovering his sexuality, he's discovering there's loads of things that's happening to Jude at that time, and that just added another bit of torture on old Jude. Something else for him to be sad and
Another
confused
stick to
about.
beat you with. But I do think you're right. It does add like further depth to what's going on and complexity to what's happening, especially between him and Cass. And especially in relation to Cass and the way that he's groomed in the book, and like there's a lot to be said as well about the way that they're talked about, like him and the way that Cass and Gideon are talked about by sort of like the locals. Like there's like a slightly homophobic undertone to the way that they're discussed.
Yeah.
And I think it also adds to that sort of otherness of them and the way that they're viewed by people. So I thought it was a clever thing to be able to build upon as well. And yeah, I did like the choice.
Thank you.
But some people were torn about the end of this book, which does not surprise me at all, because there is obviously Cass and Jude put each other through hell throughout this book. Much of it is at the manipulation of Gideon, but there is that element of like, can these two like still make this work? Were you surprised to find that some people were like, no, I can't see them together anymore, or that no, it does kind of work, and they have someone they can chase after? What was your sort of?
I don't think I was surprised. I think I expected people would hate Cass and would hate Cass for like 80-90% of the book. And when I introduced the other possible suitors for Jude, I made sure that they were decent and lovely people, because I needed that. I needed it to look like Cass is the worst of people and these two are like the nicest guys ever. So I needed there to be that kind of, what could Jude's life look like if he just chose one of these guys? Like, he would be in such a better place. So no, I don't think I was surprised that people didn't want them to be together, and I think I was surprised like you can come away from that book and be like, I don't think they're going to work out as a couple. Like there's too much has happened. They're going to break up in a couple of years. Like that's not going to work. There's just too much history and stuff there. But I think what I was surprised, and that's fair and valid. I think what I was surprised about though was just some of the lack of empathy for Cass towards the end. Like some of the I don't read a lot of reviews, but just sometimes you're in comments like your video, like you'll see people making comment, oh, he never deserved him, or he deserved what he got. That sort of stuff like really shocked me. I was like, this is a kid. He was groomed by his uncle, and then he was like, he was 15, like he was 16 when he made these choices based on the situation that he would like. That was wild to me at the end, that people still had no empathy for him after knowing what he'd gone through and knowing like he'd made this effort to change. I don't know, that surprised me. That really scared me actually. Like, who are you people that you don't have empathy for this guy? But they were always going to end up together. For me, it was always going to be them at the end. So no, I think the answer to my question is no. I'm not surprised that people were torn, and a lot of people wanted them to see him with Nathan, and I think that's why I threw in like Nathan's happy. Nathan's not like off, mourning Jude or mourning that relationship, and I think everyone got the ending that they deserved. And I think it's more of a story about they went off and they changed and then they came back together, because Cass is so right. They could not have been together at that point when they were kids. Like, it wouldn't have worked, because Cass was a totally different person.
Yeah.
I feel like I've said too much, and I'm going to ruin this book for you now.
Not at all.
I overstay.
I think it's really interesting
Overshooting.
because as an author, what's it like for you? Because you spent so much time writing this book, and then you release it onto the world, and everyone has their own interpretation on it. And especially they have their own interpretation on these characters that you write. How do you feel as an author when people either misinterpret a character or, take it in a different way than you sort of imagined, like, and they almost have this relationship with a character that you don't have? What's that like for you?
I think I probably blame myself. I'm kind of like with these people that don't forgive Cass by the end and still think he's the devil spawn or whatever. I think, oh, maybe I didn't do enough good job at the end of like demonstrating that he deserved this love, or maybe I should have written him differently towards the end. Or I had a lot of people saying, oh, he didn't grovel as much. I'm like, this guy has been through hell. Like, is he going to come and grovel? Like, what do you know that like everything you know about Cass, he's not going to grovel. So I think some of it's maybe on me, but I also think just people interpret art in different ways, and that's totally that's how art works. Like, as soon as it's out there, you can interpret the title how you want. It doesn't really belong to me anymore. The characters will always belong to me, but yeah, how you read the book and interpret the book, or what you get out of it, that's on you. I might not agree with your interpretation, but I'm not going to get angry about it.
I think I mentioned as well towards the end of my original review of the book that I know some people are not going to, they're going to have a different read of the ending to what maybe I might have read. But that's because people are coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, sometimes different traumas, where they will relate too strongly to a character, or they'll see too much of a character in someone they know or someone in their life, and that colors their view of it. Which I think with characters like Cass and Jude, who are like quite deeply flawed people and who do make really big mistakes, there is like some people have a very emotional reaction to it and a very strong reaction to it, which is fair, but it's just that's where I think you get so much a variety of opinions, which is great because the more you're able to take in and sort of hear and that's a wealth of experience that you're learning from people. That's all sort of a better way of understanding. So yeah, it didn't surprise me at all.
No.
That people were going to be like that, but I do think it's just because there's such a variety of the human experience that some person can read something and take something completely different away from it than you might. So no, I wasn't surprised.
Same. Yeah, same. I mean, I needed Cass to be awful he was he was awful. Like that was the idea of him in my Estella is awful. She's not a good person. But there are reasons she's shaped by, her environment, and Cas was also shaped by his environment, and he was awful at the start of the book and for a big portion of the book. But I think when we dip in, certainly in part 2, and we see the shifts in his personality and that lead us to the Cas that he is, I think at the end, I think it does show that he was a child. We all I think a lot of people forget when you're a child, your brain's not even fully formed, so you're not even making decisions based on anything rational. And a lot of people reading this book are not children, and they're thinking about these characters like they're grown adults, and so yeah. But I needed him to be not irredeemable, and I don't think he was an irredeemable character. My personal opinion. But you guys can think something different, of course.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me on to my next question. I would read a whole different load of different romances, and one big trope is the bully trope, or enemies to lovers, is obviously Oleander would fall into that at this point. What I find is that some authors really struggle to walk the line between these characters have hurt each other too much to justify being together in the end. And I recently said it about a book, Raising Arizona, or was it Raising Arizona? Something along those lines, where someone had broken someone else's arm or something, and the way it was described, it was so visceral, and it was done out of maliciousness, and there was just the whole vibe around it didn't work. But by the end, I was like, no, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
How do you, as a writer, walk that line? Because it's very tough whenever you're doing it with a story like this, where you have someone who is quite unlikable for a huge chunk of it.
I think if we understand why the character is the way he is and why he's doing these things, or some of the stuff that shaped his personality, was it obvious why this guy was breaking his arm, and is it something that you could understand? I think again that'd be down to the individual reader, whether their line might be completely different from my line. I think Cas did show change towards the end of the book, and he had grown and changed as a character, and reckoned with a lot of stuff. So I think for me, it's if we see that, that growth in a character. If the guy is the same guy he was at the start of the book, and he's still, there's no reckoning, I think for me, I would be like, why this is never gonna work. If the people are fundamentally the same people that they were at the start of the book, and they were enemies, then how is that going to translate into a successful relationship? It's hard, but it will be different, and it is different because there's still a lot of people that don't think Cas and Jude are going to be together, or should have been together. Actually, so do you not think that they should have been together? Actually, when you said you were one of the people that was torn about the ending.
No, I think that they are going to be together. I think at that point they had been through so much, and they had such a deep understanding of where both of them were coming from. I think whenever Jude was able to finally understand Cas and finally understand what motivated him, he just seemed the sort of broken person behind all the decisions that were made. And I think they would have a journey of almost rehabilitation for Cas, as in trying to get him to understand what's normal and what's not, what he's been led to believe his entire life is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. Because Cas does a lot of things which are incredibly misguided, but it's a complete reckoning of how he was raised, and how he was raised is not very nice. So he's gonna have basic understandings that don't meld with real life, that an ordinary healthy person would not consider to be normal. And there will be a breaking down of that and having to readjust to that. And I think Jude, with the love that he has for Cas, is a good sort of support pillar to help him work through that. And also an incredible amount of therapy. Stupid amount of therapy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Now that he doesn't need to hide behind this sort of mask of indifference and cruelty, they can just enjoy being with each other. which is kind of what was driving Jude to always keep him within his mind, because he knew that there was something worth saving here, and now
Yeah.
that that part is fully flushed out and doesn't need to hide anymore, there's kind of no reason not to, if as long as Cas gets his ducks in a row.
Agree.
So I mean, I'm right.
They're going to be so happy. Yeah, you're right. You are right. Yeah, they're going to be happy. They are going to be happy. There's a couple of little bonus scenes. There's a little bonus scene on my website that you can read for free. It's like a little Christmas scene where they're super happy and they get a kitten. They're fine.
Okay.
They're gonna be good.
I see.
Cats make everything better.
Cats do make everything better. Mine was, well, except for sleep. Mine was screaming at me at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And so there's a few very tough themes in your book. Obviously, there is grooming, which is a lot of where Cas's issues come from. Sort of familial abuse, generational trauma, and also violence towards one another, especially in the case of Cas and Jude in his dorm room. How do you approach writing topics like that? Like, what are you sort of thinking in your head whenever you're like, okay, I'm going to include this? Like, how am I going to go about this?
I think what I'm thinking is, why am I writing this scene? Why is it important? And what, like, would this book, would I still be able to get over the same message without this scene? So like, if I took that scene out, the dorm room scene, which actually is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole book, especially the part before the physical part, where they're kind of doing that. The audio on that is just, it blows my mind when I listen to George do that audio of that, because he just captures them. I can see the whole thing in my head. It gives me goosebumps. And I think there probably is an argument that we could have just skipped to the next morning, and we could have just he could have just thought back about what had happened. And I didn't make the physical scene very long. Like I kept that as short as I felt like I could keep it, by still keeping what needed to happen the next morning, which was the bruising. Like, he needed to think that the bruises were from him. I don't know how I would have done that without actually demonstrating what that encounter had been like. So I think, if I know why I'm writing it, I know what its purpose is, and that it's important to tell this part of the story. The grooming is more difficult, because I did play around with that for a long time. Like, how I knew there was going to be a domestic violence situation, but I think it made more sense towards the end, and certainly with the reckoning between Jude and Gideon in the very last scene in London. It just felt like it would have a bigger impact if we could see that Gideon had in some way made this happen. Like, that would have explained the hatred that he had for him at the start of the prologue, to just tie that back to, like, why did he hate him so much? Why? It felt important to then add that, but also keep it ambiguous enough that I didn't really want to touch it too heavily. Like, I wanted to, again, leave it up to the reader. When do you think this thing is Cas telling the truth when he says nothing happened until he was 16 or whatever? So I think for me, it's, why am I writing it? Does it still work if I could just take it out? It's not something I particularly enjoy reading in books. A Little Life, I resent what that book did to me, how it made me feel. Like, still to this day, traumatized me to my core. So not that should be a barometer of trauma in books, but I could not see any reason for a lot of what was in that book, and why it needed to be so graphic and so traumatic to the reader. I feel like I have very strong feelings about that book. I can see you do as well, someone. You're shaking your head there, like,
I really enjoyed the book, and in a way, when you say the word Jude, I always go back to A Little Life in a way.
Yeah.
Because of what the character's name.
And I read that book whilst I was writing Oleander. Yes. It's too. So I was like maybe halfway through writing Oleander, I think, when I read A Little Life, and I was seriously thinking about changing Jude's name because I was so traumatized by that book. But in my head, he was Jude already, and I was like, I can't change his name. He would be a different guy. I have him in my head as Jude, but it crossed my mind because that book just I loved. I love her writing. She is a gorgeous writer. I love To Paradise so much. It was like one of my favorite reads last year. Gorgeous, right? I've read all her books, but that book just did something to me on a molecular level.
I
Stole
had,
something.
I was the same. I had a really strong reaction to that book, and
Yeah.
again, the author, I acknowledge that I'm like she's very, very talented, very, very
Yeah.
talented, really good at evoking emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read that book, I was just so angry at the depiction of cruelty in it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was like
As soon as you
unnecessary to
thought,
take it to that level. Like,
yes, there was. You can have what you. It just kept getting worse, and when you think it could not get any worse for this character, and I know, I thought
hold
about
my
that when
beer.
yeah, exactly. Like how do we make it even worse? And no, you thought that was no, we're doing, and the extent of detail, it was just I could not see any reason for the level of detail that was included in that. I got that he was. I actually saw the stage play as well, and that was, and it almost didn't go, but we had tickets, and just traumatized me so much. So
Yeah.
I hope that
So
answers your
with
question. I
that,
hope there's a question is answered in there somewhere.
it said, yeah. So basically, if it's serving a purpose within the story, good, but we'll keep it not very graphic, more
Yeah,
suggestive, leave
yeah, I
it
would
up to
say
the reader to interpret.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
would
I
say
can see
so.
that. It's funny, we have the exact same opinion of a Little Life.
Yeah, I, I I remember standing at the sink. I'll never get this out of my head. Standing at the sink, washing dishes, and after reading like one, I can't remember which scene it was, and just bawling my eyes out, like actual, like grief, actual grief
Yeah.
from how traumatized and sad I was for this character. And I think we just obviously feel books very, very deeply. I had a friend who read it and did not cry and just thought, she was just like kind of bored or whatever. And I was just like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
What do you mean?
So yeah.
No, you might enjoy this question now because I'm going to ask you who your favorite character is in your own book, but also who's your favorite character that you wrote in the book,
Can you
or your
guess
favorite
who's my favorite
character
character?
to write
Who do
in
you
the book?
think? Who do you think my favorite character is from Oleander?
I would say Luke or Cass. It's going to be one of two. You're either going to be like, I really like writing the friendly, lovely guy that I just think is great, or I'm going to really love writing this really tragic character. I think that's what it is.
Cass is my favorite character, because he's just so complex and so complicated, and he was so cutting and he was so smart. I hope he. But Gideon was probably my favorite character to write because I don't know anyone like Gideon or who speaks like Gideon or who breathes like Gideon. So every time I was writing him, it felt like I was like anything could happen. Like, what is this guy going to say or do next? He was just wild, like so much fun. Such a bizarre, such a fun character to write. And again, the way George captures him in the audio just blows my mind because it's exactly how I imagined him. So yeah, Cass, my favorite. Cass is the best, my favorite character that I've ever written from any book. I just love him so much, and I do love him. And I like Felix from Limerence as well. He's probably but you never asked about Limerence, but he's probably my second favorite character I've written. Luke is just the best man ever, though. But I probably know a couple of people like Luke. I probably know a couple of Lukes. Down to earth.
Looks a green flag.
Luke Green is a
sea of
green
red
flag.
flags.
Yes. Yeah, he's just, what a guy. Everyone deserves a Luke.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we've had a good talk about the book now. You're sort of thinking about the elements that you wrote and how people reacted to it. If you were to go back now and rewrite an element of the book, is there anything you would change, or would you just keep it the same?
No, it's perfect. It's a perfect book. No, I'm joking. There's a couple of little things I would tidy up, a couple of little inconsistencies that I notice when I listen back, because I'll do listen to the audio every now and again, just to remind myself, the writer that I used to be, that I was in 2024. No, I'm joking. My best is yet to come. I don't think so. I don't think there's anything that I had someone pick up on the fact that the architecture of Devereux House would not be possible, would not exist on Jersey. So I should change the kind of stone that was used in the. So I might change that to make it more believable. But no, I'm fairly happy with the book. I'm fairly happy with it. Is that really?
Basically, your research on Jersey quarries and house building wasn't quite up to snuff.
Everything else was on point as well. Like, because I went there, loved it. It was so beautiful, very picturesque. But Devereux House I just made up. It doesn't exist. But everything else existed, like the beach and the little roads down to it, and the cottage where Jude and Nathan stay. That was all real. But they had to pick me up on that one bloody house that was from my head that doesn't exist. But yeah, more research required.
At the minute, I seen something on social media that suggested that you might be writing some sort of Dracula retelling. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
She is writing a gayer, because Dracula is pretty gay already, I would argue. It's pretty queer coded. So she's writing that. I don't know if you know. I talk about it. I've talked about it a few times on Instagram, not so much on TikTok, because I'm not as prolific on there. I don't really know how to work TikTok, so most of my stuff is on Instagram. But yeah, it's dark. It's still historical, but I'm setting it around post World War One, kind of like 1920s ish. Not quite the Depression, like, but murky, kind of post-war-y. A lot of guys with kind of PTSD kicking about from the war. It's horror. It's going to be proper horror. So it's my first time writing any kind of, and I'm absolutely loving it so far. It is so camp, so melodramatic. Like, just think, like, get loads of Gideons around. Like, everyone's a Gideon. Like, just speaking like Gideon. So it's kind of a mashup between Dracula and Nosferatu, I would say. Again, probably I did read Dracula only recently, very recently, but when I seen Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers film, like 2 years ago, whatever, I thought, wow, I could make this gay. I can make this queer. I could really do something with this. The same way I did with 1990s Great Expectations. Then I rewatched the 90s Dracula again and realised like how much of that is not in the book. When I read the book, I was like, this whole love story between the Count and Mina is like completely Francis Ford Coppola's imagination. So yeah, I've taken a bit of each. I've taken the book. It will be quite epistolary kind of layout. Lots of diary entries, trying to keep in with the original. But yeah, it's going to be dark, a lot of blood, a lot of going to be quite scary. So yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't think you would go the full horror route, but
the
now
full
I'm
dark,
even more intrigued. Yeah.
You thought I was scary before, just you wait, sir.
Is this going to be as emotionally damaging?
It's not going to have a happy ending, if I can say that. So yeah.
Interesting.
But I mean, I don't know yet. I've got 2 possible endings, and I'm fighting it out at the moment with my alpha reader. She really wants me to go in this direction, and I'm like, yeah, but what about this? So we're kind of fighting that out as to how I'll just, because I don't plan books. I just sit down and just write them. So we'll see. But it needs to be obviously within the realms of like within what happens in the book, those 2 movies. So it'll not be completely like out of left field. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's fun. It's very fun.
Can't wait for that one. Now, do you have any advice for any upcoming romance authors that are trying to maybe get into writing or maybe even start self-publishing? Do you have any advice for them?
Are you trying to get into you're writing a book, Declan?
Silvan,
you guys writing books?
No, maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Whenever I have like time. But no,
Never.
not at the moment.
That's not.
Not an ever.
Advice. I mean, probably don't spend 12 years in the wilderness on Wattpad writing for free would be my advice. But also write. Just bloody sit down and write. Write as much as you can. Write, even if you don't think it's a full story and it's just a scene you have that you can't stop thinking about. Write that out. Like, just like write. Don't be scared of like doing a terrible first draft, because like my first drafts are horrendous still to this day. Let people read it. Take feedback. Just weigh up. Like, don't assume if one person hates it, everyone's going to hate your book. It's
take it with a pinch of salt.
Just have a bit of confidence in it. Yeah, with a pinch of salt. I think that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, yeah.
I was just trying to think of as you were speaking and how you were talking about sort of just write. Would you go with write what you know, or write what you sort of think your audience wants to like read? Like, yeah, I was just wondering about that.
I would say not the last one. I wouldn't write what you think your audience wants to read, because it needs to be what you want to write rather than what they want to read, because you'll lose interest in it halfway through. Like, I have done that in the past, where people have asked me to write a certain thing, like a sequel to something, and I've been like so inspired by all these people wanting the thing that I've done the thing, and then just lost interest. Like, it needs to be, and it doesn't need to be what you know. I mean, I don't know anything about like two teenage boys from Jersey, but I had a dream. I had an idea. I don't know much about vampires, but no, write what interests you and what excites you and what you think you'll have the most fun with. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, actually, the BBC were in touch and they want to adapt Oleander. Did I not say that at the start of the call?
What?
I'm joking. I'm joking. Can you imagine though? How amazing would that be? Oh, how amazing would that be? Netflix have been in touch. Oh, it would make such an amazing like BBC.
It would be so
like,
Netflix money, Scarlett. You'd give up
money.
all your jobs.
Oh God.
Miniseries.
Although I probably wouldn't get much money. I feel like they would try and like, yeah, they would give me some. I would take it. Listen, I would give them it for free. Netflix wanted Oleander to make it. It'd be so lovely. It could be 6 episodes, like normal people, just really classy and sort of, yeah. That's my dream.
We'll manifest. If any execs from like Netflix or Prime or whatever other streaming service there is out there, pick up this book, because it is so beautifully written and it is so rich, and it's brought so much joy to the readers that have read it, but also a lot of angst reading it, and it's been such a pleasure to actually read. And so when you look at your work, do you imagine Oleander on the big screen, Scarlett?
Yeah, big screen or small screen would be fine. I'd be happy with either. But I think, I do tend to visualize a lot of these scenes in my head when I'm writing them or before I'm writing them. So I have a very clear idea of what the rooms look like, or what they're wearing, just the way they're standing, the way the light is. So I think I watch so much, too many movies and TV for that not to like affect how I write, like very visually. And it always really helps me as well if I've got an image of the character as close as I can get to the character. So I spend hours like scrolling Pinterest trying to find just the right Cas or the right Jude for
the inspiration.
Yeah, for the inspiration. Yeah.
I like that. It's a real interesting way of writing your book as well. I know some people like aren't very visual in the way that they write, and I can't imagine doing it any other way. If that makes sense. Like, if you're not perfectly picturing what's happening in your mind, you're not playing it out as it's happening. It's interesting to maybe I'll ask another author at a different point, like what way they do it, if they do it differently, how they sort of
if it's a visual thing,
imagine it then, if it's if it's like a visual thing. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one.
I've definitely asked authors that I've chatted to, like, did you have an ideal person in mind for this character? And they'll be like, no, not really. And I'm just like, blown away by that, because I always have a really, really clear image of what they look like, or near as damn it to what they look like. Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask an author this. What are you currently reading?
Oh, good question. So right now on the side of my bed, I have a book called Ithaca by, is it Claire North? Because we were going to see the Odyssey, my partner picked this up for me. So it's really sort of Penelope's POV of the Odyssey. So like she was languishing at home while he was, trying to get home. So she's got all these suitors, and I don't know if you know the story. Did you? I don't know. I don't know how much of the story you know. So that's what I'm reading right now, which is really good. Really good. And I think I'm going to read Song of Achilles again, because I'm now in my Greek
punishing yourself.
Greek tragedy phase. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's probably like one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite book of all time. I know you never asked that, but that's free. You get that for free.
There you go. That's a free one.
Yeah.
It's funny. I get a lot of that sort of type of storytelling from Oleander. That sort of Song of Achilles. Sort of.
That was the biggest compliment. That was the bit that made me go. So that was, thank you for
that's
that.
What it feels like. It has that complexity, it has that heart, and it has those like really complicated emotions, and the prose as well is really well written. And I can see a lot of the Song of Achilles in Oleander. It has that sort of tragedy to it. I just really, I think that's why I also gel with it so quickly, is because I read Song of Achilles as well, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like, I'm getting a similar vibe here. I'm getting a similar sort of style here. I don't know if you've read Circe as well.
I have. Yeah, I have.
Brilliant.
Great.
That's a great book.
I think Madeline Miller's her writing style is just stunning. Like that really simple but powerful prose that she just keeps everything really no faffing around sometimes, like with loads and loads of adjectives or descriptions. She just has a real light touch to her prose. It's gorgeous. Which Yana Gahara does not, but it's still an amazing writer. She's very descriptive, and she's got a gorgeous prose as well. I don't know which I prefer, but
so
both are gorgeous.
All
to be anywhere, yeah. We love our female, we love our female authors.
Scarlett, your social media, do you want to promote that, or is there anything you want to promote?
You can sign up for my Patreon if you're an Oleander lover. There is some free bonus material on there that you may want to just sign up for the month, get some bonus audio as well, of George just reading some of the bonus scenes. I think there's maybe about four or five bonus Oleander scenes on there. I won't be offended if you just sign up, read them, and then cancel. That's fine, because I know there's a lot of Oleander people out there that got a lot of comfort from those bonus scenes, who were like still really hurt and needed them. So just from a therapy point of view, you might want to do that. But yeah, you'll mainly get me on Instagram under Scarlett Drake. That's mainly where I am.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, Scarlett. It's been a real pleasure. I've loved talking about the book with you. Finally glad to be able to put a face to the name that has been tormenting me and giving me an existential crisis after finishing one of your books. So
that's the biggest compliment. I love it.
Now I'm terrified of what Dracula's going to be like.
You should be terrified. Yeah, you should be.
God. Well, with that warning, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us as well for this episode. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Also, check out our book club. That's on Fable. It's the Long Game Pod book club. And on that, we are currently reading some of Alex Cross's books. Really, really fun ones at the minute. The one we're reading is about a college volleyball player and his boyfriend who has a drug addiction. So that gets very, very interesting. I would highly recommend trying that one out and joining us for that. But that's it for now. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.